Hey everyone, this is the ThinkEnergy podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Seguin from Hydro Ottawa. Are you looking to better understand the fast-changing world of energy? Well, the ThinkEnergy podcast isn't your ordinary energy show. Every 2 weeks, we take you on a tour and discuss, through a communication lens, some of the coolest trends, emerging technologies, and latest innovations. So stay tuned as we explore some traditional and some quirky facets of this industry. This is the ThinkEnergy podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 13 of the ThinkEnergy podcast. Leaders like Amazon have a single view of their customers. Their customers are deeply connected to the business platform, and as a result, help build rich customer intelligence and insight. Customer service strategy is in the DNA of Amazon. As a matter of fact, one could argue that it's their entire DNA. So clearly articulated in their vision statement, Jeff Bezos states that he wants Amazon to be the Earth's most customer-centric company. So here's my big question for today. Customers are now expecting companies to respond to and interact with them in real time. Is the best solution to increase headcount in customer-facing departments for utilities, or is it to favor the deployment of chatbots and other AI-powered technologies? In this episode of ThinkEnergy, I am joined by a very special guest, Julie Lupinacci, the Chief Customer Officer at Hydro Ottawa. Julie is responsible for developing and implementing the organization's customer strategy and guiding the business in terms of customer needs. With more than 15 years of customer care, sales, and marketing, Julie has a wide background in business, including project management, customer vendor relations, international partner program management, procurement, and program development. Are you ready to dive right in, Julie?
I sure am.
Good stuff. Let's start by you telling us a bit more about what it is that you do. What drew you into the energy sector?
Sure. So here at Hydro Ottawa, I oversee all of the customer operations groups. So that's everything from customer service to billing, collections to taking a look at process improvement or any processes that are touching the customer, and including communications. So making sure our message gets out, making sure our customers know what we're up against, what we're doing, and then also we do a number of conservation programs. So we work on finding out what our customers need and what they want, and putting those programs together and making sure folks know about them. From the beginning of my career, I've always been very interested in understanding customer problems and being able to bring solutions to them. And I always wanted to be in an organization that was thinking about the customer first. So when Hydro Ottawa was looking for a chief customer officer, where they were bringing a bunch of these customer-facing initiatives together under one person or one directive, it was really exciting. It brought all of the items that I've been working on in my career forward, with an ability to really support an industry that was massively shifting. So when we say that, the electricity is being distributed like that for 100 years, but how we interact and how we talk to customers and what the expectations of customers are for that is dramatically different, and it's changed significantly over the years. And specifically in this industry, we are right at the cusp of making some of those changes, which is a pretty exciting time for us.
Can you share with our listeners how you drive that transformational customer experience across the organization?
I think how you drive anything is through a lot of conversation and through a lot of questioning. We always question the status quo. We always question why we do things the way we do, and if there's a better way. We question whether there's technology that we can leverage to really support what we're doing, and taking a look at trends. So how we're driving that, it's not just me. We've worked as an entire organization to drive thinking differently, to challenge the status quo, and that's how we continue to do it. Every meeting that we have, we think of, is there a better way? How do you take manual steps out of a process? How do you be better for your customers? And it's through those questions and through digging and driving and not just accepting the first answer that comes up that we continue to press that thing forward with the customer in mind.
Having said that, what is most critical to the success of a customer-centric strategy? And also, how do you operationalize customer empathy?
Yeah, so there's probably two different questions,
Yes.
Dan, but for sure, how do you make sure that the customer is there? You need to talk to them, right?
Okay.
So you need to be having conversations. You need to be present. You need to be approachable for your customers. So everything we have tried to do in everything from how we communicate to customers through all kinds of different channels, which gives them choice on how they want to communicate with us, to how we engage within the community, to our community activism and investment strategies. So we are out in our community talking to people by way of volunteering. Our employees volunteer, and they're talking to customers. We're sponsoring different activities out in the community to be part of our community. We are very engaged with our shareholder, which is the City of Ottawa, and hearing from councillors and what their customers are. To open houses, if we have design work or capital work that's happening, and we're changing poles or changing transformers or expanding in a new subdivision, or we need to do tree cutting or tree trimming in a subdivision, we are out in those communities asking customers what's going on, letting them know what's happening. And that's key. That's key to understanding and making sure that the customer is always seen as first, and making sure that their voice is heard in here. And that's definitely part of our division and our group's responsibilities to make sure that voice continues to be heard. The second part of your question, which is basically taking a look at how do we operationalize customer empathy. I think this is a continuation of asking questions, but also making commentary on a customer, but making sure that customer has a face. And I would say during outages is probably a great opportunity for us to really reemphasize how important our customers are. There was not that long ago an accident on Hunt Club and Bank Street, which took out a pole. And this was very traumatic for the person who was involved in the accident, but also traumatic because it took out a large group of customers all at once, and it took a very long time to get one of our customers back up and running. And I commend to the crew that responded to that, because they were on point. They were in talking to that particular customer, letting them know how long it was going to take, ensuring that they had what they needed. And the teams are always doing that, and reminding people during outages, which is probably a very easy one to do, reminding of the faces of those businesses, of those customers, of our moms and kids and hospitals and the people that are in need, and grocery stores, and making sure that people understand how those customers might be feeling. And the other thing, it's not hard to get people to think that way, because we're all human and we all have our own needs and families. So we can really empathize with some of our customers by putting ourselves in that situation, because many of us have been in that situation. So reminding them is quite easy. Good
answer. Let's move on to the next one here, which actually is a good bridge here. Customers come into contact with your organization, with our organization, through a multitude of touch points. You've alluded to call centers, open houses, through social media and website. How is your customer journey mapping exercise informing the business decisions? And maybe elaborate for the listener, what is the customer journey mapping?
Yeah, so a number of years ago, we, as an organization, made a very conscious decision to put the customer in the center of our strategy, and all other pillars are come from that perspective. So when we looked at what that meant, putting customers in the middle, what exactly does it mean? And you really have to break it down. So we looked at process. We looked at all the touch points that customers have with Hydro Ottawa, and we looked at how do we make those better? What are the pain points within those customers? And we did some journey mapping of a process that we said, okay, a customer starts at A, and how do they get to B? And a lot of points, there's a lot of different swerves and maneuvers and hoops that we were making customers jump through. And we all know, we go to processes and we go to companies and to websites, and we want the least number of clicks. We want to be able to get from A to B very simply. People don't like complexity when they're working through any process, not just with Hydro Ottawa and not just with your utility. So we looked at how do you streamline some of those processes, and how do you make that easier? How do you make it less touch points for a customer to have to do, and making sure that every touch point is actually adding value, and if it wasn't, removing it, right? And taking potentially a totally different maneuver there. So we started this journey a number of years ago, where we've mapped out all of those customer touch points, and then started identifying some of the top areas that were both that we heard from customers that were frustrating to them, for them to navigate, and frustrating for us to have to navigate as well. And we started tackling some of those one by one. It's and like any journey mapping process and any roadmap that you do, you have to take incremental steps to get where you're wanting to go. So we have a strategy on where we're wanting to go, both from making sure that our customers have the access to information at any time that they want, and to be able to communicate with us in any channel that they want. And then on the back end, we're looking at how do we bring that in to simplify the response rate, and you're not managing 30 different applications to be able to provide choice. So we're providing choice responsibly for our customers and making sure we're easy to do business with, and that's the most important thing that's driving that journey.
Well, my next question actually you've answered, because we were talking about the customer listening path, and you've covered it there. So I'll move on to the next one. How do you allow customers, and there's two sides to this one here. How do you allow customers to address their own issues instantaneously without putting pressure on contact center teams? Like you've alluded to that, where you do have agents that are there to respond to questions, to inquiries from customers. Can chatbots enhance that channel? Do you feel that conversational marketing will help brands like ours reduce friction, enable service, and maybe even raise customer satisfaction?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that question, Dan.
It's loaded.
It's a totally loaded question. Customers are wanting information faster, and they want to resolve whatever the question or problem or concept that they're trying to get to in a very quick way, in an easy way. And you're right, that does put pressure on contact centers, especially if the only way that you have to talk to people is by them calling you. So that doesn't make sense anymore. A lot of people don't want to talk to anybody first. And we've moved into a point in time in society where most customers and consumers are doing all kinds of research in advance of ever talking to somebody at that company. So we need to be very conscious of how we put information out there. We've revitalized our website to make sure that the contact information, the information that is, I would say, transactional information that customers are really looking for. So frequently asked questions was a very kind of a historic way of managing it, but making sure your website is answering all of those things and your customer is actually able to navigate there quite easily. The other piece to that is making sure that we use some of the technology that we have out there in the world today, right? So we have voice messaging that you can navigate. So very, interactive voice recordings that we have with customers, so they can go through a menu and select and get an answer for a very specific question that comes through to us very easily. So we've leveraged our telephone system to be able to tie that to those frequently asked questions. We've leveraged our website, and we've leveraged our social media strategy as well. We've got a huge following, and it grows every day. But that following has, needs for information as well. But the reality for a company like ours, we're not Nike, we're not Google, we're not Amazon. So we also have to be pretty respectful of how much time and conscious of how much time our customers are actually thinking of us and what they want from that information. So typically that's billing information and consumption information and what's happening if my lights go out. People don't think about their hydro company or their electric company until they turn on the light and it doesn't work. And it's those times that they're needing information. So we have leveraged technology through our social media stream, which is a chatbot through Twitter that allows us to send out information in a pretty truncated way, but it sends out very rapid fire information about what's going on, and we use our social media to push that news out, especially Twitter in that particular case. Some of the other forms we're getting into a little bit more detail. So on our website and our YouTube channel, we provide additional information on if you're expanding your service requirement, or you're doing renovations and you're going to be digging and putting in a patio or some type of a deck. What are the things that you need to do? Those customers are looking for information. They don't necessarily have to talk to somebody. We've got YouTube videos that are able to showcase what people need to do and look for to get there. So we've really leveraged technology that takes some of those questions out of the contact center. So the pressure is not on the contact center to be able to answer everything. And in some cases, it's training those folks to be able to help drive and provide information in easy ways to the customer. So we've leveraged technology. We train our staff to be able to help divert folks. And in a lot of ways, we're training our customers. So through podcasts like this, through our social media, through whether it's Facebook or Twitter, even on our website and some of our advertising that goes out through our customer campaigns, it's really to get the message out on what they can do and give them the information in a time that they're looking for it so they can make the decisions on their own.
Okay, so we're going to switch gears just a bit here. How are you shifting perception from a boring utility company to an enabler of amazing solutions, something you just talked about? One would assume enhancing touch points is somewhat important, right?
Absolutely.
Would you share with us a moment you gave a customer a story to tell by providing them with a memorable experience? Would you have a proof point to share?
So I probably have a couple to do. I think the first piece is, within Hydro Ottawa, I think we know where we stand in the market, meaning we're a utility company. We're not the Amazons. We're not the Googles. So we're not selling this product, the next new thing, which is an Apple Watch or the next, cool, trendy shoe. But that being said, how we talk to customers can't be boring either. And I think we got really good accolades last year, based on our Twitter handle is one to follow within the city. We are human behind what we do. And I think that is what people connect with. So if we're showcasing humanity, we're not robotic in what our process is and how we're doing things, that really allows people to connect better. And so that's the first piece on how you shift perception is you need to kind of be more real as an organization and find ways to connect with the customer. And we do that through our social media, but also on how we're engaging. I talked about how we do open houses. I talked about how we are involved in community events and volunteer events. We do that on purpose so that the face is not just that name and not just them turning on the lights and the bill, but they actually have interacted and met with a lot of the people that actually work at Hydro Ottawa. So that's one. But an enabler of amazing solutions really comes by way of when Hydro Ottawa is invited to the table during planning scenarios, or when customers are calling us because they are doing something different. And we've had a lot of those opportunities where we've met with the city and talked about different planning initiatives. We've met with builders on new subdivisions to be able to find new ways of making sure product is delivered there. And we've got a partnership that happens with Zibi and that the development that's going on down on the Ottawa River. And that partnership is looking at how we can get to a zero carbon community and what part can we help play and develop solutions around that. We have that as an initiative. We've partnered with NRCan to be able to come up with a solution on how to get into transactional energy, which is right now just a term, and it's not there today, but the utility is getting to a point where how do consumers become prosumers and they're able to sell electricity between each other.
We had a podcast on that on the MyGen concept. Right. So we do invite actually all our listeners to go back to that podcast if they want to find out just a bit more about MyGen.
So those solutions are really coming based on what customers are looking for and what they're asking for us. So our job is to make sure that those solutions get born, right, and that people have access to them and that they understand them. And that is our job, and that's what I feel my team's job is, making sure that we demystify or take out all of the technical language and make it a much more approachable piece, which makes solutions actually happen.
Okay. Well, the next one is we're getting right into the meat. We do know there's a lot of noise right now when it comes to actually commercials or anything that has to do with commercial noise, advertising. Could you unpack for me how you brand the utility? I'm assuming it's through distinctive communications. You probably segment your markets. That probably feeds into the customer satisfaction, the positive customer experience. How do you stand above that noise? How do you make that difference?
So I think that the noise comes, and the noise is there when customers are reading or being subjected to messaging that is not relevant for them at that time. So it's only noise when you don't want to hear it. So part of a good communication strategy is making sure the messaging that needs to be heard by a customer at the time that they need to hear it or want to hear it is happening. And technology has allowed us to be a lot of tools to be able to do that, and not just us, a lot of organizations. And traditionally, the utility has only been pushing communications out, and it's been a mass push. And we've really evolved our strategy to get messaging in front of people that are needing and wanting that messaging. So we send out outage communications during outages to the wards in some cases that need that data. We push out information to customers that want a pool, like a new pool thermostat, a variable pool thermostat, and we've got a program to support that, but we don't push it out to everybody. We push it out to those people that we know who have pools. So I think it's important to use the effective customer segmentation to be able to get the messaging and to pair people that want to hear it with the messaging that does hear it. So that's number one. And then the brand of Hydro Ottawa is much more than that. It's a 100-year-old company, so there's a lot of credibility that's built. It's a very solid and foundational company within the Ottawa area, and we need to respect that brand, but continue to make sure that people know that we're here for some of those newer things that are coming to be. So we're very, very, very careful on how we're utilizing that brand, and we've got a very deliberate process on making sure our messaging gets out to the right people.
Yeah, because it must be tough, because I'm working on another project right now, and I was looking at how many messages customers were exposed to. And if you look back in the 1980s, the average customer was exposed to 500 messages a day. And today it's over 5,000. So you have to be timely, relevant, and you just can't miss it because you'll just go unnoticed.
And it's going to get worse, Dan. I can tell you that people are starting to shut off streams, right? Yeah. And they're getting off of social media. They're opting out of different things. They use, cloaking devices so that they're not being retargeted when they visit one website to go to another. They're using cloaking devices so they're not subject to some of those retargeting messaging. So if you need to be respectful of that process and not get wiped out just because you said the wrong thing at the wrong time. So it's crucial today to penetrate, but penetrating through to that person that's getting the 5,000 plus messages is not by just messaging more. Yeah. You need to be very deliberate and very cautious and very caring about what messages you're putting in front of your customer.
Okay, last question here. And this is about the life of a chief customer officer. It must be very demanding. I mean, you probably hear your fair share of complaints, whining. I'm sure you hear a lot of great stories, but there must be some tough ones. How do you remain inspired? How do you just tune out? What do you do?
So for sure, anybody who has worked in customer service will tell you it's a tough slog when you have to hear 90% of what you hear is complaints that come in. It's very, very rare that you get customers telling you how great of a job you're doing. But I will tell you it's very rewarding when you do see some of that work come to be and see customers being able to recognize the work that you've put into it. So we get rewarded very frequently at Hydro Ottawa based on some feedback on getting the lights back on. When the lights go out, we get some of that negative feedback, but when the lights go back on, we get reinforcement on what we're doing and that we're doing a good job. So this company actually has that kind of natural piece that's in there. The tornadoes last year, so in September 2018, we got hit by tornadoes, and it devastated a couple of our communities for sure. But the impact was felt throughout the city. And that was a time where everybody was on heightened alert. We were working what we needed to do to make the city safe for people to operate in, make sure that we were communicating out what was going on and where it was, because some areas of the city had no idea what was going on in other areas, and making sure that we were restoring power as quickly as possible. It was all around a very successful process on getting the piece back, but it was even more rewarding because it was allowed us to have very good conversations with customers, very real conversations with customers right there in their communities, and being able to see firsthand how that is. Those are the reasons why we do what we do. It's that feedback and talking to customers and hearing the feedback, that's what inspires us. And even when you talk about complaints and whining, the customer service group is not just an empathetic group that hears your whining and tries to mitigate it, tries to gloss it over. We hire problem solvers. And we are very deliberate in finding customer service agents and folks within a customer operations that like to solve problems. So even if you are complaining about something, we take that down to the root on what is the problem that this customer has and how do we solve it. And being able to solve many problems, and in some cases, if one customer has it, others might have it too, and solving those as problems, that's what really helps to propel our team forward. So as much as, people think that the complaints could pile up and get really hard to handle. And, some days are. I'm not going to say that it's easy to be yelled at all day long. But when we take those service agents and we unpack what that problem is, and then we start doing problem solving and we come up with a solution and we deploy, and then we see that customer's response to that deployed solution, that's it. That's what drives, I would say, 95, 98% of what we do within customer service.
Cool. That's what it's all about.
It is.
Julie, thank you very much for sharing this with our listeners today. In closing, if people wanted to connect, what's the best way?
So for me, I'm on LinkedIn, so at Julie Lupinacci, Julie J. Lupinacci, and then on Twitter as well. They can reach me there, or you reach me at my email address, which is julielupinacci@hydroottawa.com.
Very cool. Again, thank you very much. Hey folks, thank you for joining us today. I truly hope you enjoyed this episode of ThinkEnergy. For past episodes, make sure you visit our website, hydroottawa.com/podcast. Lastly, if you found value in this podcast, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or maybe even tell a friend or a colleague. Anyway, this podcast is a wrap. Peace, everyone.